Hey, good morning, guys. Mike with Chassis Parts Online again with you this Saturday morning, July 19th. Back on this truck, and this thing's got to leave. It really needs to leave today. So I've got a factory control arm under there mocked up so I can put the rear bushing mount on it to cover that, where that stud is down there. What I brought out here today is my regular rear arm for the 65 to 79 chassis. Now you see on the 65 to 79 chassis, you got the 6 holes there, and then right back here, these 2 holes, which are 3/8 from the factory, those just need to be drilled out to 1/2 inch, and this fits right there, okay? And that's where it sits, inside the frame for that control arm, that lower control arm. So I've got some mock-up bushings here I'm going to put on it, and I'm going to get a piece of thin cardboard, and I'm going to put it on the back of that stud right there, figure out where it's got to go here, mark my holes, and make me some flat plate to go into those 2 holes there. But I'm also going to figure out where it needs to be drawn in CAD to be in a different spot to make it compatible for that same arm mount instead of having a different arm. I mean, the plate should be the only thing that's different. So let's start on that and see what we can come up with. Okay, I brought me a couple levels out here. Razor blade. Got some scissors there. And I got a couple of washers. Now, this washers are what I send to go on the front of that when I ship one of these shorter crossmembers. So what I'm going to do here is put aluminum bushings in here, mock-up bushings, put that on there, and I'm going to try to level that up and then clamp it to it. Okay. So right now what we have is level, 90 degrees basically. I've got the bushing on into there with the washer to simulate the poly bushing and the washer that it rides on. I've got me a cardboard template here. I'm going to draw this line here is level. If that back one is level, so I'll draw a line there, and then I'll use the end of that hammer to find these holes that are here and here. Then I'll figure out where I want the other holes for the CAD drawing. For this one, didn't want to line up with these 2 since this thing's already on. And then I'll cut this plate out with the hand plasma or cutter and make 2 of them exactly the same, so I can mount the tube lower arms. And then I'm in the shop today working on the upper arms. I'll have those done here in just a little bit. We can mount those and start mounting the spindles and everything. Let's go from there. Okay. So we have our lines drawn on there. We have circles drawn here. And what I will do is make sure this bottom corner is square. I got a line right there. That's the bottom of the frame, so that'll be my new line. I'll make that with a square. And then I'll cut the shape that I want to go around this to match up with this. Then I'll figure out how I need to change it for CAD after I draw the shape that I want for this actual truck. And I'll flip this thing around, and I'll use that corner as my 0 in CAD. Then all I got to do is figure out distance over and distance up for both of these 2 holes. In relation to that, draw that in CAD, and I'll have the CAD version of this to make the production version. One of the things I think I'm going to do is, since we don't have to worry about where these 2 holes here are on this frame, I'm going to use basically the mock-up for the other side. In other words, I'm going to move this over to this edge. It's actually a 3/16 gap at the back for that weld. But I'll move this one over to here, which puts this plate right in here somewhere, which is closer to these holes if it's right along here somewhere. That'll make a shorter distance there and for a smaller plate. So I'll do that. I can do all that in CAD too, and I can do it on the template on the table before I cut this out. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish the upper control arms for this. The lower arms I still have to press the ball joints into. Upper arms, the ball joints bolt in. Then I'll have to gather up all the cam bolts and hardware for this and find the spindles. I gotta know where one is. Got a box of bolts. I got a steering rack, everything to put this thing together. So let's get on with it. One more thing on this before we go further. This hole right here is a hole that's already in the frame, and these two here are part of the steering box holes. And that's where that plate was. I drew it. I traced it. The new arm will come down about right there. So I may want to use that hole and that hole instead of that hole. Just move that to here. Not on this one, but on the production version, because it's closer to up and down. Or I could use this hole and another one straight up and down from it, like up here somewhere. Basically the same as these back holes, or whatever this distance is to make that right. I'd have to look at the other side real quick. That hole is there on this side. It's a little bit bigger on this side, so I'll have to do some measuring to see if it's in the right spot. And there's the outline I have of the new bracket. See how close I can cut it out with steel. Actually, I've got to make two of them. And there it is after cutting. So it's not that good looking a bracket, but once I start using the hole that's here instead of that one there, this will look a lot better. Maybe we use that hole and put another one right in here somewhere and move this over a little bit. It's not going to really matter on the truck either way, just simplification of brackets. Next up, drilling all the holes, which I did. Then I'm going to cut it right down this line right here. Then I'll sandwich these two together so I can cut them and grind them the same with exactly the same shape. I guess they don't have to be, but my ADD kicks in. Well, mocked up, test fit. I don't have the sleeve on the bottom yet. Well, look, it comes out in the right spot. Okay. I don't like the hole being this far over. I think I'm going to use that hole that's right down there. Production version. I'll just have to do some measuring to make that work. But I like this so far, so we go ahead and weld it. Okay, I am in my shipping room here. Got a little mess on my table. Getting all the parts out for this set of upper and lower arms. These are the upper ball joints, and that's the snap rings and grease fittings for those. And they will probably use these washers or these. These are stainless. I didn't need to use the uppers adjustable on this thing because he's got coilovers and he's not going real low with it. But that's just happened to be what I'm building today, so that's what we're going to put on it. I use these adjustable rod ends. The problem I've got with these is that hole is 5/8, and they do not sell these with a 9/16 hole sleeve, 9/16 or 14 millimeter. And the Crown Vic has a 14 millimeter stud on the top, so I have to make those sleeves myself like this, and I have to push these out, and these are a pain in the ass to get out. I have to actually do it on the press. So I got to make those before I can put the uppers on. But I just got through putting the bushings like this right here into the lower rear arm mount that goes back there at the very back. And I'm fixing to take that rubber hammer and knock these bushings into those holes, and then knock those sleeves down inside those bushings so I can put these on. This ring goes over that. The problem is I do not have I don't have any snap ring pliers here at the shop. I think I need to make that a few thousandths bigger so it fits over easier. I can't put those snap rings on, or the snap rings that go with this actually under there. Can't put those in there yet. Had a hell of a time pressing those ball joints in, but I got them pressed in. I put them in the freezer like I talked about. And yes, that's where that spacer ring goes. Takes up the space right there. And then you put the snap ring over that. Of course, it's pressed in and it's pushing down on the ball joint, so it's not going anywhere. You can do it. You can leave it completely off, and it'd never come loose. So let me get these in so I can take this stuff outside and start putting bolts in it, putting it on. You'll go from there. Hey, good morning, guys. Sunday. And we are back on this thing. This 56. I've got the lower control arm on. I was mounting the back rear arm, and then I realized I got a measurement problem there. Okay, I've got too much distance there. So this arm is not going to be the factory one. I mean the production version. It's only going to be for this one truck. I'm changing these two holes, so either I'm going to use that hole and one right below it that's right in this area, or I'll move these holes over here and then end up using those for this arm. I don't know yet. Just depends on how it looks in CAD. I'll probably end up using this arm back here and making this fit back here somewhere instead of how it is right there. But for this one, I'll have to put a spacer there to go with. I've already got to have a stainless washer there, and the stainless washer basically sits against that inner sleeve there and rides on that poly bushing, so that poly bushing's not rubbing the paint off of a plain steel washer and then rusting later on. It's same thing that's there, and then inside there on both sides, both of those are stainless. The outside welded on washer here is stainless with a regular washer that's been coated out over that. That's a 5/8 bolt, 5/8 by 5.5 bolt with a all steel lock nut. That's plenty strong there. That bolt right there is grade 8 also. So yeah, I'm going to put the spacer in the back here on this one. Production version won't have it, and this thing will continue to go together. One thing I did this morning, let me get down here on the ground, is I put a spacer in here. That's a piece of 1-inch DOM, quarter wall, basically a 1/2-inch hole down the middle. And I had to put a washer on the inside because my spacer here only covers those two top holes. Production version will go all the way across. There won't be a spacer because the frame box will take up that extra 1/8 inch. And on the back one, it's so close to the frame right there, I had to go with some 7/8 OD with a 188 wall, which leaves a 1/2 inch. Okay, so that takes care of that. I've got all the bolts in here in this. I've got to put the nuts on the inside of those bolts, put that spacer on there, put the bolt, tighten that bolt up, and then we can go do the other side, lowers, and then do the uppers. And then we'll start getting the spindles and everything out here, and put the rack on and all that stuff. So let's keep going. Okay, there's the back all zipped up. As you can see, it's got the stainless washer on the back, plus it's also got a black washer, small diameter washer there under the head of the bolt. Same for all these washers. Got a washer under the head of the bolt, washer under the nut on everything. That's just the way I do things. As I said before, this big welded on washer, that's a stainless washer, so that if any of this rubs it, it doesn't rust. It shouldn't. None of that should move, and certainly these washers shouldn't move. These washers rub against that poly bushing. That poly bushing is graphite impregnated polyurethane inner suspension, which means they will not squeak either, and they do not need grease. All right. So this is all tightened up, as you can see. Looks pretty good. So let me get the other side going, and we'll check in. Okay, guys. I was in the process of installing this side right here. Got the arm on and everything, when I realized I've got an issue. Now, I'll go back over here to the side, and you can see it. For guys with coilovers, this ain't going to be a problem. But with guys with bags, that may not be enough. I mean, that's pretty far up. That may not be enough. So, since this thing is modular and fits more than one truck, I'm going to have to do something about it. Which means, on this outside plate, I'm going to have to take this outside plate and cut it off. Now, the inside plate can stay the way it is and bolt to this, but the outside plate is going to have to come across there. Now, you still got 8 bolts here. You got 4 on the outside and 4 on the top. That's certainly plenty of bolts to hold that. So yeah, I got to pull this off without taking it out like I did over there. I just put 2 bolts in from the inside. I got that piece cut. It's hanging up with primer on it, so I'm about to put it back on, and my clearance will be good on that. But I'll have to put a short bolt in the bottom on that side, and then redo this side too. But everything else fits pretty good so far. About ready to put the rack and the upper arms on this thing too. I got to assemble the arms. That's what I'm going to do while the primer's drying on this, and cut this, and I pull this other piece off. So I'll start assembling the upper arms for this. Okay, so it's a little loud here in the shop, and fans going. Very hot here in Texas today. These are my threaded ends that I use on the upper control arms, the adjustable upper control arms. These are made by Rod End Supply. I've been buying them through Speedway. Probably, I don't know if there's different price on Rod End Supply or not, but as I said before, that centerpiece has a 5/8 hole, and the outer is 3/4. The outer sleeve is a 3/4. So the problem with that is that the Crown Vic uses a 14 millimeter upper bolt. So you don't want to have a customer have to drill out their aluminum crossmember. So I had to push those out and make my own inner sleeve. I got my bandsaw running behind me, cutting some of these inner sleeves to accept a 9/16 bolt, but I got to get these out. Now, I tried pushing some of these out by putting this over a hole and taking another piece and hammering it, but I end up squashing that, and it started mushrooming because it's so tight inside that hole with a hammer, trying to do it with a hammer. So I ended up making this for my press, my 2010 press. Basically, it fits in there in the middle, like that. And then I've got a tool, this tool right here, that I put in there, like that, and crank it down and it comes out. Okay, unfortunately it takes 2 hands to do that, so I'm going to push these out and go from there. Yeah, this is one of those jobs I like to get my helper to do. You see that handle? I got the handle from Swag Off-Road. It replaces that pin. You knock that pin out that's in there, put this on, then put the pin back. I got the other one from my hydraulic ram on my bender, And this one, for this one. See if I can do this with just one hand. But yeah, I like to set up a bucket full of these and let my helper do these for me. Because it doesn't take hardly any pressure for these to come out. I mean, you're just barely pumping. But it doesn't take a lot of repeats on it. This is also one of the places where I would like to replace that with the air over hydraulic version. That's going to drop out the bottom in a second. There it goes. Okay. Okay, so that's all 4 of those. One other thing I'll say about these ends is, I guess you guys know, Speedway Motors makes their own end that's very similar to this. It has a different outer dimension on the sleeve, but their inner dimension is the same 5/8. And I really don't know why they don't sell them with a different inner sleeve so you can run a different bolt. I mean, they would sell a lot more if they did that. But for me, I don't mind making sleeves. I've got so many pieces of different size DOM here in the shop. Makes no difference to me. Now, the Speedway end is wider or narrower than this. I can't remember which one. This way, the diameter is a little different and the bushing is different. So they will not interchange. Now, they got the same threads and everything. These are 20 bucks on Speedway's site. And the Speedway version is $23.99. So that's why I buy these. They're a little bit cheaper. I mean, talking about having to buy 4 of them for a set of upper arms, that's 80 bucks right there. Time you buy jam nuts and make inner sleeves, you know, you're 100 bucks in on a pair of arms, and that customer has got to pay that cost versus a non-adjustable set of arms. Okay, came in here in shipping, used the dead blow plastic hammer to knock these bushings in. These have a light oil on them, so I don't have to put anything on them to make them go in. And we'll be back in here in just a little bit to assemble the upper control arms with those ball joints right there and those spacers and everything. Okay guys, here is the right hand side after modification and zip back up. Plenty of clearance there. Bolts all in. Rear arms mounted. Everything hangs down so it should. I gotta go get the other one and put on here as soon as the primer dries. In the meantime, let's assemble the upper arms. Okay, so I decided to put this piece on first before I finish the upper arms. And while I was in the shipping room, found those snap ring pliers. So I decided to bring the spacer out here and put on here and put snap rings on here. I reamed this a little bit. Looks like I need to change the drawing on that because they used to fit a lot better than that. But I'm gonna have to tap that on. Shouldn't have to. Set this phone down. So that's how it goes. Basically just a spacer. And yes, that spacer is stainless, so you don't have to worry about painting or powder coating it, and you don't have to worry about it rusting. Yeah, now on to putting this back on. Okay, those are zipped up. I gotta have one bolt right there on the front. The back one, there's not enough room, I don't think. There may be. I'll see if I can get one through there. Then we go around to the other side, zip that up, and then, as we talked about already, upper control arms assembly.